Oh, hello everyone. Hello everyone. My name is Justin. I'm one of the tutors at the Department of Psychology. So first of all, welcome to HKU Information Day. So we are happy to have all of you here. We hope you have a fun time learning what we do and what psychology is. So this section is mock lecture one. So we have two mock lectures in the next hour. So this will be a sample lecture for you to get a taste of what teaching at university level is like and how the teaching style is like in our department. So we have two speakers. The first one is Dr. Kim, Clara Kim. So she has an educational psychology background. Her research focus on social development at different developmental life stage in children, as well as curriculum design and executions. Her topic is, as shown in here, above and beyond myself, positive youth development in classroom and community. So her talk will last for about 20 to 30 minutes, and then we will have Dr. Jeff Saunders. So he has a cognitive background. So his research specializes in visual perception and navigation. He is also interested in decision making and problem solving. And his talk is on how we know what isn't so, cognitive biases and false beliefs. So let's welcome Dr. Kim for the first half of the mock lecture.
Thank you for the introduction. Hello, everyone. My name is Saetbyul Kim. I usually go by Clara here. So it's nice to see you all and welcome to the Information Day, especially to the Department of Psychology. I am going to talk about above and beyond myself, positive youth development in classroom and community settings. So as you can quickly tell from the title, I am going to talk about why it is important to study positive youth development and how can we possibly foster in class and in community. And the key is actually in the very first line, above and beyond myself. So you need to really think about someone else and the well-being of others and societal needs, not really focusing on yourself. So I will unpack this a little later. The part slides. They work? Oh, yeah. So for those who are not familiar with the disciplines of educational psychology and developmental psychology, let me start off by briefly talking about this subject or major. Basically, here are some of the questions that you can raise under the educational psychology. So the questions might be, why are some students good at math while some people frequently fail? Or how do positive social relationships contribute to academic achievement? What are effective strategies for promoting friendships in classrooms? Does emotional intelligence help with self-regulated learning? So there arise a lot of different professional terms that you might not be familiar with, but basically we are interested in really focusing on the social dynamics or academic learning styles or academic achievement as well in classroom settings. It is not only confined to the classroom settings, it can actually go beyond the classroom settings, reaching out to the communities or family dynamics as well. So the keywords examples might be teacher-student relationships, teaching strategies, social relationships, psychological mechanisms of instruction, and etc. How about developmental psychology? How do developmental changes influence aging and memory in older adults? Or what are the psychological effects of early trauma on emotional and social development? What are the impact bilingualism on children's cognitive growth? So the examples might be attachment, cognitive development, or socialization. So basically, we face a lot of life challenges, and there are a lot of important life tasks ahead of us, right? In living in life, very starting from the very early in life throughout the death. But then when we go move on toward the next stages of our life, there are multiple ways that we can handle our life challenges. Some people explain it using the factors of moral development. Some people approach it using the terms like identity formation. Does it make sense? So here is my profile. So you can quickly scan the QR code. And if you'd like to learn more about the studies or disciplines or topics of the research, you can go over my profile. And after this talk, perhaps in the interest of time, I wouldn't be able to really go delve into the practical suggestions based on my research. So if I cannot cover them all, I am willing to provide you with some of the materials if you reach out to me. So this is my research lab names. I named it very recently because I joined the department pretty recently. It is called COMPASS. So it stands for Creating Optimal Meaningful Pathways for Adolescent Social Emotional Success. So basically, we oftentimes focus too much on the students' academic achievement and career success, neglecting the importance of social emotional success. So what do we mean by social emotional success? I am going to unpack this a little later, but basically in our research lab, we investigate effective education programs and instruction that can promote students' well-being and thriving. And in doing so, we are interested in developing and unpacking developmentally appropriate psychological mechanisms. So why have I become so interested in this topic? I was born and grew up in South Korea, and actually, as you might be very well aware of, we celebrate our high achievement levels in South Korea, but then we really sacrifice the well-being of young people, and that is not really very different from Hong Kong as well. I just realized that after I come to Hong Kong, which is heartbreaking. But we see that decreasing pro-social actions, specific behaviors, and intention for future family. And students report really high levels of mental health issues. They perhaps are very fearful of disappointing other people, including their family members. They sometimes fail to sleep well because they are suffering from academic stress. And 1 out of 4 students, they see and they anticipate their lives as negatively, which is very sad. I'm not going to delve into the statistics, but here are some of the evidence from many research institutions or even the Education Bureau that really report how severe it is in Hong Kong. And that's perhaps why we really need to focus on fostering positive youth development in Hong Kong. So again, why is research on positive youth development so important? Because we want to gain insights on how to foster positive development among our students that are supported by the evidence and scientific methods. So we are not supposed to just come up with random solutions in suggesting an educational initiatives, right? Those should be really based on evidence and empirical support. So here are some of the research findings that I can tell you a little. So this is one of the study that I did in South Korea. And then the finding is that social support really predicts pro-social attitudes and actions. So what do we mean by pro-social attitudes and actions? Perhaps you already know what is different from actions and attitudes, right? Attitude is what you believe, and action is what you are actually engaged in certain behaviors. So we do not necessarily leave out what we believe in. So actions and attitudes, they are two different psychological constructs. And then the finding shows that the more you're loved and supported by others, for example, your friends or parents or the significant other, that can include your mentor or romantic relationship, the more positive attitudes that you have toward pro-social actions, specifically volunteer work in this study. That means that if you feel like you are loved by others, you formulate positive attitudes toward helping others. Does it make sense? But then, such high levels of social support perceived by others does not necessarily lead you to engage in pro-social action because, again, attitudes and actions are different, right? So how can we do that? In this study, I have found that the contextual element of the social support matters. So which means that when you perceive high levels of social support in, let's say, volunteer work setting, then you are more likely to report higher levels of engagement in volunteer work. Does it make sense? So it can be understood in this way. If you perceive high levels of social support in your family members or maybe in academic settings in your classroom, for example, you are more likely to engage in pro-social actions in classroom setting. For example, helping others, helping other struggling students, solving the math problems, etc. In another study, we also have found that positive social relationships predict high sense of community and vice versa. So what is positive social relationships? You feel like you mingle with others pretty well. It can be with your peers here specifically. And then sense of community. What is sense of community? You feel like you are obligated to help others and you are very willing to contribute to the society. That's the sense of community. So basically positive attitudes toward the societal needs in general. So the middle schools and high school students participate in the study, but in South Korea, middle school and high school are equivalent to the junior secondary and senior secondary in Hong Kong. So you can think of them as secondary students. So secondary students who reported more positive peer relationships tended to report more positive peer relationships in the later years. So like if you report high levels here, it's likely that you report high levels in the later year and 2 years later, which seems like these constructs are this construct is pretty stable construct, right? And then similarly, sense of community, if you show high sense of community, it's likely that this pattern is replicated over the time. But then how about this relationship? So if you report high positive peer relationships, that uh-huh, that leads you to report higher sense of community in the later year. And then again, it affects you in a way that can report higher peer relationships in the later year. Does it make sense? So it affects longitudinally and the vice versa as well. If you hold positive attitudes towards society, you are more likely to report more positive relationships with your friends. So what does that really mean? If you feel like, oh, you believe that you are obligated to help out others, then you are more likely to have a good relationship with your friends. Does it make sense? And then this type of pattern was replicated for the relationship with teachers and parents as well. So basically, this study suggests that when we formulate and maintain the positive relationships with our important social figures, such as parents, teachers, or friends, it's likely to formulate my attitudes in a way that I see societal needs or other people's in this society more positively, right? And then that can help me out in a way that I formulate even more positive relationships with the social figures. A very similar study that I did with my colleague, this is another study. The finding shows that engaging in community service can help promoting your sense of self-worth. So why it is important? Because I think sense of self-worth really crucial in preventing any self-harm or societal behaviors or like possibly negative behaviors such as aggression, antisocial behaviors, etc. So engaging in a community service, I'm not sure how it is defined in Hong Kong, but it's typically refers to the variety of activities that you maybe participate in, like helping out those in need and helping out some like non-profit organizations, activities, and etc. So your engagement in community can be broadly defined as community service. So here in this study, your service time did not predict prosociality directly, which it might be a little bit surprising, right? Because like you might be participating in community service for many reasons. Sometimes you're doing it because your parents told you to do so. Sometimes you're doing it because you need to do it to graduate from your schools, etc. So community service time per se does not reflect your levels of prosociality, but then it predicts higher sense of self-worth in the later year, which then predicts higher prosociality in the later year. So we can understand this in a way that service time, which is community service commitment levels, is linked together with prosociality through the mechanisms of self-worth, and then vice versa too. Your positive attitudes towards societal needs or like other people in the society predicts your promoted sense self-worth, which then predicts more commitment in community service, right? So even if this study was solely based on the survey, the way how it was designed and the statistical model that was employed enables us to interpret it as like a causal inferences, right? So basically, the bottom line would be even if you don't feel like engaging community service, once you engage in such activities, you might be able to experience promoted sense of worth. It can be through many different psychological mechanisms. Maybe you might be feeling pretty good about yourself because you have done something good, you know? So that such part is unseen, but it can be through the other mechanisms. So with these promoted sense of self, you are formulating more positive attitudes towards society and other people. So how can we really promote students' social emotional well-being? The previous studies were based on the survey, and at least it shows us that students need to formulate positive relationships, and that will be perhaps better for their sense of self-worth, and maybe participating in community service might be one way to do it. But how about in the context of classrooms? So this is one of the projects that I was involved in. My previous supervisor was the PI of this project, which is called collaborative social reasoning. So in this project, we had a lot of different elements of the curriculum, such as open discussion, perspective taking, deliberative argumentation, equal participation, mutual respect. So those are the core principles of education that undergird this instruction. And students participate in discussions using socially and morally complex issues. And they wrote a lot of essays. They were able to think through these issues with others. Before and after, they wrote some short essays, and also they participated in self-reported survey. So in designing and implementing this type of instruction and curriculum, we need to make sure that the curriculum design or the elements or characteristics of education should be really in line with developmental characteristics of students, right? So in this specifically case, it was fifth graders. So for example, we made sure that the discussion prompts were in line with fifth grader students' cognitive levels based on the developmental theory. This is another project that I was serving as the project manager. It's pretty similar to the previous one, but then what is different from the previous one here is that we implemented a lot of different multimodal activities, such as Flip. You might be familiar with this software, but it is like a self-recording software where you can really record what you think about this or your thoughts generally, and then share this recorded video with others, and they participate in this group discussion using learning management system group discussion boards. They also submitted online individual written essays. So it involved a variety of individual and collaborative activities in class. And then students learned like a lot of different topics using videos and reading sources, etc. So basically the idea really is to expose students to diverse perspectives that students can broaden their viewpoints. Again, similarly, we made sure that the curriculum was socially interactive, culturally responsive, cognitively stimulating, and digitally immersing. There are a lot of different ways to design the curriculum and instructional strategies, but here are some of the evidence-based instructional methods that we implemented, again, for fourth and fifth graders in the United States. So my bottom line here is it's important to employ developmentally appropriate and effective ways in educating students in classrooms. So how can we really know that this is effective? Here are some of the reports from my research group previously in the United States, but there should be multiple more else coming up. And then also a lot of different schools of thought, they also report that well-designed collaborative learning instruction can promote students' social emotional well-being, perhaps because they have a lot of chances to interact with others and they naturally pick up some social clues and they learn how to respectfully listen to others and just maintain harmonious relationships. So here are some summaries of the educational principles that I like to suggest. First of all, design activities that contain exposure to a variety of perspectives encourage the students to learn what others think and let them observe how others deliver their thoughts competently. Also, embed multiple and frequent self-reflected activities so that students can digest their inner thoughts. And if possible, let students take turns playing the roles of different individuals so that students can develop empathy. Let students collaboratively work on activities, either discussion projects or collaborative projects. Give opportunities to set positive social norms in class, in group. Positive social norm is like, okay, so we agree or disagree with the ideas. We do not agree or disagree with the people, right? So this can be one example of positive social norms, and provided opportunities for students to challenge themselves and experience success. In that way, students can gain some confidence. Again, so through what types of psychological mechanisms do we think that students can really promote their social emotional well-being? There are, again, multiple pathways, but here are some examples. Sense of community that I said, empathy, self-efficacy is your belief that you can do something well in certain subject or any activity. Understanding of others, which is called social perspective taking. Self-transcendent motivation is your pro-social motivation that you want to help out others. Critical thinking and self-agency can be possible mechanisms. When we link our education principles with any psychological mechanisms, we always make sure that these types of theoretical grounds are based. And then I would like to wrap up my presentation by saying that it's not only from my research findings, but also from other renowned study done by the Harvard. They tracked many people longitudinally over like several decades, and then they found that the key factor in helping people living out really happy life is relationships, positive social relationships. So here are some of the suggestions that I can make for you to employ in your daily life for social emotional well-being. But for the time's sake, I'd like to wrap up. And again, if you reach out to me, I'm very happy to provide you with like perhaps translated versions of these suggestions. Thank you so much for listening.